Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad that you could join us today. I have the wonderful, wonderful pleasure of introducing two really, really good friends who I consider to be total rock stars. My name is Leisha Dodson, and I went with the Alzheimer's Association Western Carolina chapter. And I've got two awesome, awesome guests. My friends, Dave. You want to say hello, Dave?
Hello, Dave.
Hello, Dave. And my good friend, Steve. You want to say hello, Steve?
Hello, Steve.
And last time that we got together, we discussed a little bit of background about Alzheimer's disease, what the disease process was like, and the warning signs and all the things that we need to be looking out for. And today is really special because we're going to talk a little bit about really what it's like to live with it and talk about what it means to have to be dealing with this on a daily basis. And so, you know what? Who better to speak about this issue than the two most incredibly, wonderfully warm people that I've ever met in my life who are willing to share their stories and their experiences. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into a form of Alzheimer's that some people don't, and some people have experienced quite a bit, early stage and early onset Alzheimer's. This affects about 4% of individuals who have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And we are actually very fortunate to be able to have our friends here to be able to talk about what is going on in their lives and how their journey is going so far. So what I wanted to do was to start off finding a little bit more about you. I mean, you guys know me, and you still like me, I think, right?
Of course.
Good. Okay, good. Because I love you. You know, Dave, we're looking at you in your handsome blue shirt and your sparkling blue eyes. And, you know, people would look at you and say, hey, this guy, Alzheimer's? Really? You don't look like the type of guy who has Alzheimer's. We tend to think of someone like a little older and a little, you know, a little stooped over. You look like you're in pretty good shape. I want you to tell us what your experience has been like with this disease. Tell us about when you were first diagnosed. Tell us a little bit about how did you figure that out? How did you know that this was happening to you? Tell us your story.
My story is my wife told me that I was not responding to her a lot of times, like I zone out sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it happened a couple of times. Once when I was working and I was supposed to be talking to somebody and I just zoned out. So that's how I knew something was going on. So from that point on, we went to a neurologist, and then a year later, I was finally diagnosed.
So you were having trouble with a lot of the things that were pretty easygoing. What did you do before you were diagnosed?
Before I was diagnosed, I was an IT guy, worked for Vanguard Group.
Yeah. And you and your wonderful, wonderful partner in life, who I love and cherish very much, you guys have lived a pretty happy, full lives, and you're still continuing to do that, right?
Yes, we do.
Yes, you do.
We're a match made in heaven.
Yeah, she's pretty special.
Yes, she is.
She really is. I wanted to also spend a little time with my friend over here, Steve. And one of the things that we do with the Alzheimer's Association is we provide support groups. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make a confession. Steve and I met over the phone. And Steve called in, and he just kind of gave it to us. And he said, "Why don't you have an early stage support group?" And I would just start it, and I said, "I don't know. I don't think we have really a good excuse." And so Steve helped us to be able to form our first early stage support group. So folks like him, folks like Dave, and our other friends can be able to sit there and be able to share their own experiences. But Steve, you have your own story, and I want to make sure that people hear that because it's so important that people know your journey. So share that with us, please.
Well, about 5 years ago, I started having trouble with my family when we'd pull into fast food restaurants. and I'm always driving, and between them all relaying what they wanted in the order, I'd ultimately goof it up somehow or other, just too much information, my brain couldn't take it. And this went on for years and years and years, and it's just like, and I felt sorry for my family because my frustrations, they took the blunt end of it. But we never put one and two together. And then as things progressed in work, like Dave, I started forgetting major tasks at work to the point where my supervisor was writing me up because I was just forgetting what I was doing. And it came to a point where, wow, am I going to get fired? What am I going to do? So you get your medical leave, your family medical leave in line, your short-term, long-term disability, because you don't know what's going on. And I ended up losing my job before I had the diagnosis of Alzheimer's, but I had mild to moderate cognitive impairment, and it was a nightmare. The diagnosis process, 3 neurologists, 3 neuropsych tests, a PET scan, tons of blood work, and finally I got a neurologist that Wendy and I were able to sit down, express our concerns with him. He listened to us from the heart, went over all the tests, monitored me for 8 months, and finally says, we're looking at early onset Alzheimer's, Steve. And that was that.
Yeah. Steve, you've so eloquently expressed all of some of the frustrations that a lot of people that have been diagnosed with this disease and what you're experiencing. And I definitely want you to share that. But I also want to be able to share that, there's a lot of, at this point, you guys, you're incredibly vital and you seem healthy and you are engaged with people who love you. And there's still so much of you. And I know that you all have your interests and things that you like to do. Like Dave, you're a runner, and you're a good runner, and I need to follow you. Tell us about that a little bit.
I've been a runner all my life, and it just gives me pleasure running. Met a lot of people running, but when I ended up with Alzheimer's, I had a problem with running because I get lost. So my wife and I found someone that can run with me, so I do that on a regular basis right now, where I can go out, someone will trail me, someone will drive me back and forth to the house and so forth, so I can at least get out and do my running.
Right.
So that's been a blessing, because I hadn't been able to run for a while since I had Alzheimer's. But now I can run now.
Yes.
So.
And you're a bit of a marathoner, I take it.
Yes, I've run several marathons already.
Yes. I mean, that's very impressive. Well, I barely want to run up the road. But you're just an inspiration, and I want to run with you sometime. If you're willing to handle me being a slow poke, I really appreciate that.
Hey, everyone starts slow, so.
This is true. This is true. And you're a disc golfer, I take it, right?
Yep.
What's that like for you?
Well, I try to get out and disc golf at least 3 times a week. My daughter's boyfriend, about a year and a half, took me for the first time, and I've gotten to be an avid disc golfer. I play all over Charlotte. I live to play disc golf. I just love it. And
I know. You gotta. I think that helps bring an important point, don't you think? That even though you have Alzheimer's, it doesn't have you all the way right now. That you can still enjoy life. Yes. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
I would. I would.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that a lot of people tend to associate with Alzheimer's is someone who's maybe in their 80s or 70s, 80s, or 90s, and can't see that even when they've been diagnosed that they're still that person. I want you to guys, because I think this is probably the hardest part, is for people to hear that, to hear what do you want people to see, what do you want people to hear about you, about this disease, and about how you need them in your lives. And I'm gonna let Dave start us off with that, if you don't mind. What do you want people to know, Dave?
To know about me and
Yeah.
let me think about this.
Mm.
Help you take Steve first, and I can come in next.
Okay, I'm cool with that.
I've got a couple things that are really on my heart, really heavy, that people need to understand.
Yeah.
And the first one is I have a brain disease, an organic brain disease. I have Alzheimer's, but I am not Alzheimer's. I'm Steve. I live, I love, I enjoy life, I laugh, and I live with the disease every day, but I'm alive and I live my days to the fullest. Second thing that I would love to share is anybody diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, Pick's disease, vascular dementia, like you talked about on your first show, we are all unique. We are not the same. Dave and I both have the disease, but we are different. Mm-hmm. And if you want to get to know Dave and I, the one thing that you have to do as a caregiver, as a loved one, a family member, is to let go of yourself and come to my world. I have a brain disease I can't change, so you have to change and accept me where I'm at, and we can have so much fun. We have so much to offer and so much to give, and that's so important. I want people to know that.
And I agree with you 100%. This, you guys being so brave and being here, but you also have incredibly brave and wonderful people in your life too, that you want to acknowledge as well, and that's your family, and what they've managed to do for you. So, I just don't want to skip over you, Dave. You're not off the hook. I want to make sure that you tell us what you want people to remember, but since we're on the subject of family, tell us a little bit what your family means to you right now in dealing with this disease.
Most of my family lives up in Maryland. Well, I'm sorry. All my parents and all my brothers and sisters are up in Maryland. So all I have is my wife here in Charlotte.
Well, she would think that's a pretty big thing to have her.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
And it's basically me and her at home all the time now.
Yeah.
Now that our dogs has passed away, so it's just the two of us. So, but I definitely agree with what Steve was saying, that we have a disease, and we're living with it. It is what it is. It's a buzzword. I don't. A lot of people use that sometimes, but it's. I'm okay with having the disease. In fact, when I was diagnosed, I finally found out after a year that I had what I had. Mm-hmm. So I was very happy that I found out exactly what my future's going to look like now, because I found out what's finally what my problem is. So I got a great attitude about it, and I'm just living every day, one day at a time, and doing the best I can at what I do, and just keep my wife happy.
Yeah, she's pretty important.
She's my caregiver.
She's always still going to be your wife too.
Yes.
And I know that it's really easy for spouses and loved ones to slip into when they are dealing with the loved one's illness and want to fix things, and you guys, you're still a loving couple, and she's not just your caregiver, she's your partner, and she's your spouse, and I know that you acknowledge that, in the way that you two tease each other and give each other silly little grins and singing songs and all of that stuff, and that love doesn't stop, and that's such a beautiful thing to witness.
Yeah, we do everything together. We cook together, play together, drink together.
And you're a pretty good cook, I remember correctly.
Yes,
yeah.
I like to cook.
Yeah.
I'm more of a baker than a cook.
Yeah, but I'm dying to try the meatballs that I've heard about lately. the famous Italian meatballs that you make.
I gave the recipe to a bunch of the people.
Yes, I know, and it's going to take me some time to get around to actually cooking. But Steve, I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to talk about what your family means to you in dealing with this disease.
Well, when I got diagnosed, it hurt because you lose 80% of the people around you just because of the diagnosis, because they're afraid of it. And if I didn't have the wife, the daughter, the son, and their significant others that I have, and my mother-in-law, and 4 very close friends, I think I would have fallen apart. But they keep me whole. With the disease, you get to a point where I personally live in fear every day. I can't explain that fear. I'll never be able to put it in words, but my wife is my security blanket, and my wife is on the road, but if I can text her and she texts me back, or if I can call her and she calls me back, the fear is gone. Right. I don't know where that fear stems with. I've been told that it's part of the disease process, and I understand that, but my wife is my security blanket in all things at all times. And as long as I know that she's there, and I mean, she doesn't have to be physically there, but if I can reach out and touch her in any aspect, the fear goes away.
Right. You know, that is just beautiful. And I know that there's so many challenges. And, you know, you think about this. You're diagnosed with this disease, and then you guys are pretty young, working age even. And all of a sudden, your life has been altered, and you, like you had described, the feelings of isolation and abandonment by some of the people that you had considered to be friends in your lives. And I don't think that they intended in any ill will to do that. I think that there was some fear, possibly, that they were feeling, and lack of understanding. Do you think that that could be the case?
Oh, I think that's 90% of it is
right.
The stigmas are so strong with the disease that people don't understand. Mm-hmm. And case in point, I pull up to a fast food restaurant, and this is a story I tell everybody, and I've got a friend that pulls up behind me, and I haven't seen him in 8 months. Mm. And I jump out of my car and I run over, "Hey, Steve, how you doing?" He says, "Fine, how are you? Where you been?" I said, "Well, I lost my job," explained to him I had Alzheimer's. First thing out of his mouth after I told him I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's was, "What are you doing driving? You could kill somebody." Mm. So right there, the stigma, you know, up in your face, you know, right. And that's the issue, is the stigma. Everybody thinks, like you mentioned, you know, old people in a nursing home and so on. It's just.
Yeah. Dave, did you have a thought on that?
I had something very similar to that when I found that I had Alzheimer's. I just went out and told everybody that I had it. Mm-hmm. Some of the people we hang out with, when I told them that I had Alzheimer's, they said, "No, you're too young to have Alzheimer's, or you can talk, because people with Alzheimer's can't talk," or whatever. That's for whatever reason, someone had said that. I said, that doesn't make sense to me.
You know, you know, there is a lot of myths, aren't there?
Yes.
There's a lot of myths. And you guys being here helps us to separate the realities from the myths, and putting an actual face on this, and getting people to hear it from your point of view. You both probably, after your diagnosis, you did a lot of research, I'm sure. You read a lot of magazines, a lot of websites, and saw a lot of information out there. So you became very familiar with your disease. Yep. And the stages and the things that they say that might happen. But you seem to have embraced this from a different way than most people, and that you embrace it with hope, even though this is a disease that doesn't seem to have much hope. But you seem to do that. And I want to know where you get that sort of strength from. where do you get that sort of strength in order to be able to see hope in what could consider to be a hopeless disease?
Dave?
Well, I have my wife. I depend on her for everything, basically. If I didn't have her, I would definitely be hurting. So, thanks to my wife, I'm here. And she keeps me going. And hopefully I keep her going too.
I believe you do. I believe you do. I do. And then, Steve, could you share with us what drives you?
Yeah. Hope is defined as an emotional state which promotes the belief in a positive outcome related to events and circumstances in one's life. And with that clinical diagnosis of hope, I don't have that hope. I hear it over and over that you can't survive if you don't have hope with Alzheimer's. I disagree. I live my life every day with joy. My wife, when she grabs my hand as I'm walking into the Walmart store, my wife, when she says something totally off the cuff that I just wouldn't even imagine her to say, gives me joy. My daughter calling me and saying, "Hi, Daddy," gives me joy. My son texting me, "Hey, Dad, you got a minute?" Joy. I latch onto the little things in my life now. And that's how I cope with the disease. I also want to say that I have my hope in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And that gives me my total hope in where I'm going to be when this all ends. This is just a short life here that I'm living, and I'm dealing with the Alzheimer's. But everybody's got to understand that you see over and over and over in the papers and everything that someone succumbed to Alzheimer's and they're dying with Alzheimer's. No, I'm 50 years old, I'm living with disease. I'm not succumbing to it, I'm not dying. I am living with this disease, and by gosh, I'm beating the disease, because every day I wake up and take a breath, I got another thing to be happy about.
Okay, I'm a mushy girl, and I can't help it. But you know, if I had to say anything to anyone, is for everyone to listen to what your loved ones are saying. That the moment that the diagnosis comes across your lives and one fell swoop, and it feels like it's devastating, you need to listen to that person that is affected directly by the disease, the person who's also having to face a different way of being able to address the rest of their lives, because they are still there. You know, guys, here's the thing that I want you guys to do. I would love it if you could give us an idea of what, if you would talk to someone else who is living with the disease or who's just being diagnosed with the disease, because you guys have been dealing with this for a little while. What would you tell them? What piece of advice, what words of wisdom would you tell them? You've so eloquently showed us what we should be telling the rest of the community and our loved ones and our families. But what about the folks who are actually living with the disease? I'm calling you, Dave. I've got this terrible diagnosis, and they say it's Alzheimer's, and they say you have Alzheimer's too. What should I do?
Well, you have to, I would sit down with the person, whoever it is, and say, and then explain how I got to where I am with the disease. And it says, it is what it is, and it's a disease, but I'm living with it the best and hopefully the longest time I can live with it.
Very well said. Very well said. What about you, my friend?
I would write my phone number down and hand him a piece of paper, and I would tell him, like I tell everybody else that I talk to with the diseases, you're not alone. You're not going to survive if you try to live alone. You need an out, and you need to share. because together we can do wonderful things. But if you're going to be out there on an island all by yourself, you won't make it. And that's why we started the support group, because we've got other patients need other patients. Because my wife, I can talk to her till I'm blue in my face, but she's not going to get what's going on up here like a fellow patient would. And I don't give her any discredit. It's, you know, my wife is a wonderful woman, but it's just, we have that bond because our brains just, you know. I've got a good friend that he's always joking with me that, because we kind of slap fight, and he says, well, we do it twice and then we walk away from each other, and he says, well, we already did it. It's just something that goes over the top of our heads, you know. It's a joke. It's hard to explain, but it's just because the brainwaves. We just understand each other.
Right. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's that's the important thing about this sort of camaraderie, this ability to be able to be with other people who are living with it, and know that everybody's disease is their own, their own journey. But while you can talk and share and help each other, that it's so very important. Mm-hmm. In our group, we're very fortunate. You know, we're a small group of gigglers and fly fishermen and runners and disc golfers and cookers and beach goers and people who love to have a good time and laugh as much as possible, right?
We do.
Yes.
We do.
Yes, sometimes inappropriately at that too. You know, I'm not going to let my bad jokes slip, but I you know, we're grown-ups, right? We're grown-ups. I just want to tell you guys that you, Steve, when you called the first time and I spoke with you, I heard something that connected me to what I was intending to do when I joined the association, and that is to put mission to work, and for us to be able to offer a group, a safe place where people can be there and to be able to express to one another that your spouses, your loved ones who want to come can also go to the side and be able to have their time together. That's incredibly important. But most importantly, you've given me the opportunity to touch more and more people, and through the association, for us to be able to educate more and more people. I want to thank you all so much for coming today, and I want to thank my friends Steve and Dave, and I want to thank their families, and I want to make sure that that one thing if you can remember, early detection is so important, and it improves the quality of your life, and I think that that's been the case for you guys, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Steve and Dave. Thank you so much to your families, and thank you all for